Om Sai Ram. A warm welcome to all my Sai devotees. Today we are going to listen the 13th chapter of Sri Sai Satcharita, the cure of Bhimaji's tuberculosis. Baba's words were short like the Vedas, petty, deep, and full of meaning, very comprehensive and compressed. They were deep in meaning and very exact. They were never futile. They were balanced and priceless. Remain aware and alert to your past and future. Accept your faith and manage within your means. Always be contented, fret over nothing. Although I am a fakir and have no home nor household, sitting uninvolved in one place, living aside all the mundane matters. Yet Maya is inevitable. She even harasses me often. I forget her, but she does not forget me. She always comes and embraces me. Adi Maya originates from God and bewilders even Brahman and others. Then what could be said about a poor fakir like me? Only a mercy of God can save you from the clutches. Without continuously reciting God's name, this attachment will not be destroyed. This is the way Baba described the powers of Maya to his devotees and extolled the recitation of God's name as the antidote of Maya. Saints are my incarnation, as Krishna has said in the Bhagavad when talking to Uddhava, who does not know these clear words. Therefore, for the sake of the welfare of his devotees, whatever the great Sai, cloud of mercy, said, explaining the substance of the statement, listening to it with great humility. Such pious persons have become my followers whose sins have been destroyed and they have understood me. If you recite Sai Sai always, I will take you beyond the seven seas. If you believe in these words, you will be certainly benefited. I do not need elaborate worship, either 16-fold or 8-fold. Where there is infinite faith, I reside there. So spoke Baba to his devotees. From the time to time, with tender love, let us derive a solace from the recollection of these loving words. Such is that kind Sai, friend and benefactor, who is the protector of those who are surrendered to him. Just listen to the miracle he performed espousing the cause of a devotee. Drive away the waywardness of the mind, concentrate properly, and listen to this new story. You will thereby be fulfilling your desires. The shower of the nectar-like words from the mouth of Sai is in itself the fruits and gains of life. Who will then complain of the physical discomforts at Shirdi, who is aware of the advantage to be gained for himself? In the last chapter, we had heard about the darshan given to an Agnihotri and his own guru, who had already expired, filling him with immense happiness. This chapter relates an even more interesting story about a devotee suffering from tuberculosis, whose health was restored by teaching him a lesson in his dreams. Therefore, O devotees, listen attentively to the story of Sai's profound nature which burns all the sins. This narrative is sacred and purifying like the holy water of the Ganga. Blessed are the ears of the listeners, for they become the means to gain good now and hereafter. Let us compare it with nectar. But nectar cannot be sweeter than this. Nectar will save the life of, but this story will give freedom from the cycle of birth and death. People say they are powerful and they can do whatever they wish. One who thinks like this should listen to the story carefully. If If a human being is genuinely independent, then when he strives day and night to achieve happiness, why does he gain only unhappiness? This is a story of existence. Even a person is on guard to avoid unhappiness. At every step, miseries follow quickly in search of him and keep track behind him. If one tries to shake them off, they hold one by the neck. If one tries to brush them off, they cling more. Vain is man's strife against it. It only debilitates him. If a human being was really free, he would be completely happy and he would not have known even a trace of unhappiness. Assuming he was a free being, he would never commit any sins and only accumulate his store of merits, thus enhancing his happiness. But a human being is not independent. His previous births did and are attached to him, and the ways of karma are strange. He is forever a puppet in the hands of the karma. One tries to think of good deeds, but one is dragged towards sins. Wanting to be meritorious, one ends up by being an evildoer. Now, listen to the story of Bhimaji Patil of Narayan village of Junnar Taluka of Pune district. It is as sweet as nectar. Bhimaji was a well-to-do person. He was hospitable to everyone. He was never sad and was always of a cheerful disposition. Destiny plays strange games. Without any rhyme or reason, we can either gain or lose. Sufferings born of karma come to you as a disease. In 1909, Bhimaji was miserable. He started having cough and tuberculosis and he developed high fever. His cough became unbearable. The fever greatly increased and day by day became persistent. Bhimaji lost hopes. He was always frothing at the mouth, had bad taste in the mouth, and vomited blood. He had chronic stomach ache, felt nauseous and restless. He became a bedridden patient. He lost vigor, his limbs weakened, he became thinner. All kinds of treatments were tried. He was extremely miserable. He lost all taste for food and nourishment and could not digest even rice gruel and lighter diet. The condition was unbearable whereby he did not know what to do. All rites and rituals were performed. Doctors and Vaidyas gave him. He lost hope of survival and remained dejected. Patil was depressed. He felt he would survive only for a few days. Day by day, he became more tired and started counting his days. He worshipped his family deity, but even she could not restore his health. Patil got fed up of consulting astrologers, exorcists, and all sundry. Some referred to his condition as a sickness of the body, others are the visitations of faith, which human endeavor could not control and which must therefore be borne. Doctors were tired of hakims were tried. All remedies failed. Nobody could do anything. All efforts were futile. Patil was extremely sad. He said, "O Lord, what have I done? Why is it nothing avails? What kind of sin is this? The ways of God are strange. He never reminds you of his existence, even for a moment when you are happy. His ways are indeed unusual. But when it comes to his mind, he sends difficulties one after other and makes a person remember him and call out, 'O Narayan, come running to my help.' So be it. His intense and piteous cries were heard. God was moved. Bhimaji was inspired to send a letter to Nana. Nana will be able to do something which none of us else has been able to do. Patil firmly believed this. That was the auspicious beginning of the cure of his disease. Later, he wrote a detailed letter and sent it to Nana. Remembrance of Nana was itself inspired by Sainath. It paved the path of destruction of the disease. Saints' deaths are unpredictable. Whatever is the cycle of time, there also is an underlying plan of God. Therefore, no one should think contrarily and brag about it. Whatever good and bad takes place, it is only due to the God who holds the reins. He is the protector, he is the destroyer, he is the only active force, the door. Patil wrote to Chandorkar, I am fed up of taking medicines. I am tired of this life. I find the world wearisome. Doctors have given up hope and declare the disease incurable. Hakims and Vaidyas are bewildered. I too have lost all hope. Yet there is only one request which I lay at your feet, that I met you without fail. I have the strong desire. Chandorkar read the letter. He felt very sad at heart, for Bhimaji Patil was a good soul. Nana was moved. In reply, he suggested only one remedy: surrender at Sai's feet. This is the only saving grace. He is both mother and father. He is the compassionate mother of all who comes running at your call, takes pity on you and picks you up in her arms, understanding the need of the children. Even leprosy is cured by the darshan. What is to be said about the tuberculosis? Have not the least doubt. Go and surrender at Sai's feet. He grants whatever everyone asks. This is his creed. Therefore, I say, make haste, take Sai's darshan. The greatest fear is the fear of death. What else can there be? Go and hold fast to Sai's feet. He alone will make you free of fear. Patil's plight was unbearable. He had arrived at the perilous state of life. When will I meet Sainath? When will I accomplish the task? He thought. Thus Patil became bewildered. He asked the preparations be made quickly for departure to Shirdi the very next day. Thus, with firm determination, Patil took leave of all the started for Shirdi for Maharaj's darshan. Bhimaji took his relatives and set out hurriedly. He was most anxious to know when he would see Shirdi. The cart arrived at the front of gate of the courtyard of the masjid, and 4 persons held Bhimaji and carried him up the steps. Nana Sahib was there. Madhav Rao also came along. Everyone found Sai's feet more easily accessible through that Madhav Rao. Looking at Patil, Baba said, Shama, from where do you get hold of these scoundrels and dump them on me? Does this become you? Bhimaji put his head at the feet of Sai and said, O Sai Nata, have pity on this hapless creature. Protect me, O caretaker of the weak. Seeing Patil's plight, Sai Nata took pity on him. Patil felt assured that his sufferings had come to an end. Seeing Bhimaji so restless, Sai Samartha, the ocean of mercy, was greatly moved and said smilingly, Sit down and stop worrying. Wise people do not worry. No sooner you step into Shirdi, your destined miseries have got over. However, deeply immersed in the ocean of trouble or buried deep in the valley of miseries, know that when he climbs the steps of the Masjid Mai, he will ride the way of happiness. The fakir here is very kind. He will destroy your troubles from the very roots and will look after you lovingly. He is tender feelings towards all. Therefore, you be at rest. Stay at Bhimbai's home. You will get relief within a couple of days, just like the case of dying person receiving showers of nectar who immediately revives. Such was Patil's satisfaction. Hearing those words of Sai Samartha were like nectar to a man facing immediate death, or water to a man dying of thirst. When he sat in front of Baba for an hour, his vomiting of blood stopped, which otherwise he used to do at intervals of every 5 minutes. Baba did not examine the patient nor did he ask for the case history. Only with the merciful glance the disease was destroyed from the root. It is enough to receive the merciful glance. Even a dry stick can sprout leaf. Flowers can blossom without spring. The withered tree can become laden with fruits. Ill health or good health, it's a question of whether the store of good deeds is exhausted or that of the sins. There is no escape but the experience the effects of destiny. He had the disease only because of his faith. This is a rule applied to the cycle of birth and death. There is no other remedy for freedom from it other than the undergo sufferings. But if by good fortune one can get the darshan of the saint, this is certain means of cure the illness, and to heal it without suffering. A disease itself showed that this was destiny, but if a saint casts a merciful glance, it takes away the misery out of the destined suffering. That actual remedy lay in Baba's words. On the occasion, he cured malaria by feeding yogurt and rice to the black dog. You may think these stories are deviations, but listening to them all together, you will realize the significance. In any case, it is Sai who has reminded me of it. I will tell my own story. Sai himself has said this. He only has reminded me of the stories at this time. There was a person by the name of Balaganpat who was a tailor by caste and was a great devotee. He came to the masjid and sat in front of Baba and prayed imploringly. What sin have I committed? Why doesn't this malaria leave me? Baba, I have tried a number of remedies, but it doesn't leave my body. So now, what shall I do? I have tried all medicines and decoctions. Now that at least you tell me some remedy so that this fever will leave me. Then Baba felt pity for him. He replied and gave remedy for that malaria. Now listen to that marvelous story. Feed a few morsels of curd and rice to the black dog near the temple of Mother Lakshmi. You will immediately be cured. Bala was a little anxious. He went home and searched. He found some leftover rice and also a little curd nearby. Bala thought to himself, though I have procured curds and rice, will the black dog be there near the temple at the right time? But this worry of Bala was unnecessary. When he reached the appointed place, he saw the black dog approaching him with a wagging tail. Seeing everything working out right, Bala was very pleased. He fed the dog curds and rice and informed all this to Baba. In short, the whole incident may be called anything by anybody, but since then the malaria left him and Bala recovered. Similar was the case of Bapu Sahib Bhutti. He had a chill in the stomach and had continuous loose motions and vomiting also. The medicine chest was full of medicines, but none of was effective. Bapu Sahib got alarmed and worried. Due to the persistent loose motions and vomiting, Bapu Sahib became weak and had no energy left for his regular darshan of Baba. Baba came to hear about it. He sent for him and made him sit before him. He said, "Beware from now onwards. You will not go to the toilet, and also vomiting must stop." Shaking his forefinger before his face, observing him again, and repeated the words. The essence of it that his words had such weightage that both ailments got scared and immediately retreated. Bhutti felt better. Once there was a cholera epidemic in the village. At the time, Bhutti suffered from it. He had vomiting and motion simultaneously. He was in distress and had intense thirst. Dr. Pillai was near him. He tried whatever was possible, but finally nothing succeeded. They approached Baba. Every detail of how the disease was progressed was related to Baba as a supplication. Pillai asked Baba whether coffee or water would be given better. Then Baba replied to him, "Drink an infusion of milk, boiled with almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. This will quench his thirst and the disease will be cured immediately." In short, when he was given the infusion to drink, all his troubles disappeared. Eat walnuts, pistachios, and almonds. Would they ever give relief in the case of cholera? It is enough to repose faith in Baba's words. There is no scope for doubts. Once a Swami from Alandi came to Shirdi village for the darshan of Sai Samartha and arrived at Baba's dwelling. He suffered from ear disease. Therefore, he was unwell and had insomnia. Though he had got himself operated, it was of no use at all. He experienced shooting pains beyond endurance. He could do nothing to control it. He thought of living and went to ask for blessings. He bowed down to Sai's feet and received Udi and Prasad. The Swami asked for blessings and said, "Always have mercy on me." Madhavrao Deshpande entreated Baba about his ear. Maharaj assured him, saying, "Allah will make it well." With these blessings, the Swami returned to Pune. 8 days later, his letter came saying that the pain had immediately subsided. Only the swelling was still there. Therefore, an operation was advised. So he came to Bombay for the second operation. When he went to the same doctor unknown, Baba was obliged to help. When the doctor examined the ear, he saw no swelling anywhere. The doctor said that there was no need for an operation. The Swami's dreaded worries were over. Everyone was surprised. I have just remembered one more story of this nature, which I will now tell the listeners and then end this chapter. 8 days before laying the flooring of the courtyard began, Mahajani suffered from acute indigestion. He began to have many loose motions. Leaving all these burdens on Baba, he did not take any medicines or treat himself. He became quite harassed. Mahajani knew that Sai was omniscient. Therefore, he did not describe his difficulties to him. When he wills it, he will grant me relief. On his wound, having this implied faith, he bore the disease. Whatever the destined to be suffered will be, but there should be no break in the puja rituals. This was the intense wish of Kaka each day. Later on, when the motions became too frequent and were out of control, let us see what did he order to have the break in this arti on service. He kept a copper vessel filled with water on which he could lay his hands even in the darkness in the corner of the masjid. He himself would sit near Baba pressing his legs and always remain present at the time of the arti. This being his regular routine whenever he got the spans in the stomach, since the water pot would be at hand, he would go to some nearby secluded spot and return after relieving himself. So be it. When they asked Baba's permission to lay the flooring, he gave it to Tatya. Listen to what he said then to him. "I am going to the Lendi. When I return from the Lendi, you may start the work of the flooring at that time." Later, Baba returned and sat on his seat. Kaka came in time and started massaging his legs. Devotees from Bombay came by Tongas via Kopargaon by train which came to the hall there. They came up the steps with all the preparations for the puja and bowed down to Baba. Along with everyone else, Patil from Andheri also came with the flowers, rice and puja items and sat in anticipation. Just then, in the lower part of the courtyard, in the place where the rath used to be kept, exactly at the same spot, and the first stroke of the pickaxe was struck, and the work of laying the courtyard floor began. No sooner did he hear the noise than Baba shouted strangely. In an instant he became transformed into Narasimha. His eyes blazed in fury. Who is that striking with a pickaxe? I will break his back. Saying this, he got up, taking his satka. All present were filled with terror. The laborer threw aside the pickaxe and fled. Everybody ran helter-skelter. Kaka, too, was frightened. At the moment, Baba held him by his hand and said, "Where are you going? Sit down." Just then Tatya and Lakshmi arrived. He started hurling the torrent and abuses at him to his heart's content. The people who were outside the courtyard were also abused, but just then he picked up a bag of roasted peanuts which had been dropped there. It must have belonged to somebody and fallen in the masjid while running away helter-skelter when Baba had been in a fit of anger. The nuts must have been about one full seer. He brought out one handful at a time, rubbed them between his palms, blew upon the hand and cleaned it. Then he fed the clean nuts to Mahajani, while he continued to shower abuses on one hand. On the other hand, he continued to clean the peanuts. Eat them, he said. He put clean nuts on his palm. He too ate a few himself in this manner, and bag was emptied. When the nuts were finished, he said, "Bring some water, I'm thirsty." Kaka filled the vessel and brought it. He drank some and told him also to drink. While Kaka was drinking, he said, "Go, your suffering has ended." He added, "Where are those wretched Brahmins? Go and fetch them." So be it. A group reassembled. The masjid was crowded as before. The flooring work was resumed. Kaka's diarrhea was stopped. What kind of remedy is to lost tools? Is it the words of the saints that act as medicines? He who regards them as prasad can have need for nothing else. A householder from Harda was suffering from shooting pains in the stomach. He was aroused by the 14 years. He had tried all kinds of remedies. His name was Dabholkar. By word of mouth, he had heard about the powers of Sai, the great saint of Shirdi, whose mere darshan solved all difficulties. Having heard such fame, he went to Shirdi, laid his head at Sai's feet, and begged him to be merciful to him. "Baba, 14 years have passed. The shooting pains in my stomach have pursued me. Enough of it now. It is beyond endurance. I have no strength left to bear it. I have never committed a breach of faith. I have shown no disrespect to my parents. I do not know the dates of my past births, due to which I am undergoing this suffering. Only a kind of glance from a saint's prasad or blessing can remove the disease. There is nothing else as effective." Such was the Topan's experience. As soon as Baba's hands was placed on his head and he received the vibhuti and blessings, he felt relief. The Maharaj made him stay for some days. Slowly, the shooting pain disappeared altogether. Such was the great saint. How shall I describe his powers? His very nature was to oblige others and had love for all beings. If we go on praising in words his life, I find one deed is better than the other. Now let me return to pick up the thread on the original narrative. about the life of Bhimaji, so be it. Baba asked for Udi, gave a little to Bhimaji, rubbed some on his forehead, and kept his hand on his head. He was ordered to go to the lodging. Patil started walking and went up to the cart on foot. He felt vigorous. From there, he went to place previously decided. Though the place was small as it was suggested by Baba, it was important for him. The floor had just been thumbed smooth. It was with the help of a wooden log for the purpose of leveling. Therefore, it was wet. Even then, he obeyed Baba's orders and stayed them itself. He would have got dry place in the village since Bhimaji had many contacts, but since Baba had particularly indicated the place, he did not think of going anywhere else. He spread out 2 gunny bags upon the floor, on top of which he spread out his bedding. Patil went to sleep peacefully. That same night, this is what happened. Bhimaji got a dream. He saw his teacher, whom he knew in his childhood, and the teacher began to beat him. He had a cane in his hand with which he practically flayed the skin off his back to make him learn by heart a poem. The student was very miserable. What was the poem? Listeners might be curious to know. Therefore, I will quote the complete poem by word as I heard it. She is known as a real or an ideal wife who thinks she has stepped on the head of serpent if she ever enters the stranger's house. Her words are so rare that they are like wealth procured from the miser. She feels profoundly happy when she gives pleasure to her husband, even though there may be no money in the same house. She behaves accordingly to the husband's wishes without hesitation, but he could not understand the reason for this punishment. The teacher would not put aside the cane as he was inflamed with rage and terribly determined. Immediately afterwards, he had a second dream which was stranger than the first. He saw that an unknown person came and forcibly sat on his chest. He used his chest as grinding stone and took another stone as a roller in his hand. And as it were started grinding, Bhimaji felt choked, as if he was heading towards heaven. Finally, the dream ended. He slept with some measure of comfort. The sun rose and Patil woke up. He felt rejuvenated as he had never felt before. He completely forgot about the disease. How could anyone remember to look for the sign of the caning and being used as a grinding stone? People say that dreams are unreal, but sometimes one gets contrary experiences. Patil was completely cured of his disease on the same day, and his sufferings were over. Patil was very happy. He felt as if he had new lease of life. Then he started walking slowly for Baba's darshan. Seeing Baba's moon-like face, the ocean of happiness welled up in Patil. He was in raptures and swooned the ecstasy. With tears of joy raining down his face, he laid his forehead upon Baba's feet. How blissful was the aftermath of the beating and grinding he had suffered. How can an insignificant creature like me ever repay your obligation? I know it to be impossible, so I only put my head on your feet. This is only one way I can repay. There is no other means. Inconceivable and irrefutable is the miracle of yours. O Baba! Patil stayed singing such praises, and for a month He also gratefully remembered Nana's obligations he written and being completely gratified. Thus he remained contented with devotion and faith in his gratefulness to Baba. He came to Shirdi often. One needs no more than two hands and head to show gratefulness to Sainath. If it is done with a steady mind and faith in him alone to the exclusion of all others. Whoever is in difficulties performs Satyanarayan Puja if a certain calamities is averted or some boon is received. Since then, Patil started doing the Satya Sai Vrat every Thursday after an early bath and being abstemious. As people read the Satyanarayan Katha, Patil recited the chapters of Das Ganu's Arvachin Bhakta Leelamrit, relating the Sai's life with love. In this book of 45 chapters, Ganu Das describes the lives of many bhaktas. Out of this, 3 relate to Sainath, those form of Satya Sai Katha. Out of all the vrats, this was the best. Patil read these 3 chapters and experienced boundless joy and happy. Patil gathered together relatives, brothers, friends, and neighbors and regularly did Satya Sai Vrat. Very happy, the Naivedya was the same kind of being 1 and quarter measures. The rest of the rituals were the same. In one case it was Narayan and in other it was Sai. Not a single detail was overlooked. Patil started the convention but became a custom in the village and people started observing Satya Sai Vrat on after the other. Such are these saints, the merciful ones. When the proper time comes, they remove the worldly cares and devotees, but by their mere darshan and even change their destiny. The next narration herein will be there about a person craving for progamy and a marvelousness on oneness among saints. The resident and nunded town of who was afflicant of Parsi will have son after receiving Baba's blessing. Baba's indicated that Mauli Sahib was the saint from the place. The Parsi returned to his own place, full of joy. It was very lovable story. Listeners should hear it quietly, then they will come to realize Sai's all perceiveness and also the affection of nature. Pant Hemant surrenders to Sai and bows down to the saints and the listeners. In the next chapter, I will tell you about which I have already mentioned and listen with respect. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 13th chapter of Sri Sai Satcharita, written by the devotee Hemantpant, impelled by the saints and virtuous people called the cure of Bhimaji's tuberculosis. This is offered to Sri Sadguru Sainath. May there be auspiciousness. Om Sai Ram.